I believe that one of the most damaging ideas that took root within the psyche of humanity is this belief or idea that time is passing. We typically divide everything up into three categories. You have the future, the present, and the past. But you don't have to think very long to see that none of these categories actually mean anything. You have the future, which is quite literally hypothetical and unknowable. You have the present moment, which makes absolutely no sense to us. This is the conscious experience. We still have no idea what to do with it. And then you have the past. This is our big proof that anything is actually happening at all. We obviously can't see into the future, so we are constantly checking or pinging the past in this constant game of spot the difference to see if anything is actually changing. And if something isn't exactly the same way how we last perceived it, we say that something happened. This is our big proof that things are actually happening. Or is it? Is anything actually occurring? I know that this already sounds a tad bit out there, but I want to explore and try and demystify in this video this concept of the past because I'm starting to believe that it actually holds the key or the secret to understanding consciousness. And the first question that I find myself asking about the past isn't, what is it? That question follows naturally a tad bit later. But it's, where is it? Where exactly is the past? Because despite the fact that it is the only thing that we are able to cling to prove that anything is actually real, from our perspective, it is completely invisible. It completely disappears. When I got up this morning and I messed up my sheet, I left out of the room for a while, and when I came back, my sheets were still messed up, but I wasn't there messing them up. If it weren't for the fact that I knew they were like that because of me, I would think, a ghost was in the house. My entire reality would fall apart, and perhaps this is what it's like to have some type of mental degenerative disease, Alzheimer's or something like that. This entire construct of the past is held in place by memories. My memory of me doing this act is the only thing that is able to make reality make sense. And yes, I know, laws of physics, blah, blah, blah. The fact of the matter is, it's all stored within memory. If I forgot that an object at rest stays at rest, then this reality would appear nonsensical to me. It is this word memory that is the star of the show. And what I am beginning to believe is that all of reality is some kind of memory. And this term memory that I'm using is a bit tricky to sufficiently express, but it isn't anthropocentric. I'm not necessarily referring to our ability to recall information, but rather information in and of itself. What exactly is it? All of reality is comprised up of information, and information is some kind of memory. I was trying to explain this in my previous video. I've been going on this tirade about information for quite some time now. Within information theory, you have data and you have information. Data is just chaotic noise. It is nonsensical tidbits of things. Once this chaotic noise becomes pattern, it becomes information. Information is just patterns. Information, patterns, connections, relationships, they all mean the same thing. And something happens when something becomes information, when something becomes a pattern. It cannot change. A pattern is something that cannot change. By our only definition of it, it is something that consistently repeats. All information cannot change, or it ceases to be information. And once we discern anything as pattern, something odd happens. It gets lumped into the past. We sort of toss it into the past. This construct or idea of past begins to emerge. What the past is something that cannot change. And all things that we perceive as being unchanging gets thrown into that domain. The past is more like this virtual enterprise of patterns or information. It is frozen in time. It cannot change. And I guess if I had to summarize this idea that I'm trying to get across in a few sentences, it would be that whenever something new happens, the past gets bigger. Whenever you experience anything, whenever you learn anything, you are contributing to the past, because the only thing that you are able to experience is information. Consciousness is the apprehension of patterns. One of my commenters on a recent video said something similar, that the human being is an information gathering machine. I guess it depends on how you define machine, but the conscious experience appears to be this unpatternedness, this chaos that is being converted into order, information, patterns, however you want to phrase it. And once this occurs, it gets dumped into the past. It becomes stored as memory. And for us, for whatever reason, this chaotic domain, this realm of potentiality, of undecidedness, this unknownness, is what we call the future. If you are a more psychedelic type, who often tend to be the people that are interested in these sorts of topics, the late Terence McKenna would probably say it's novelty. If you're a normal person, you would just say that time is passing. But what we experience as time passing is this chaotic domain of the future being revealed to us. And I use this term revealed intentionally because I ultimately believe that reality is timeless. Or in other words, all of reality is information. All of reality is patterned. And patterns don't change, they stay the same forever. We see this within chaos theory and statistics with central limit theorem, that these chaotic systems, these things that we believe don't have any rhyme or reason to them, these things that don't appear to follow any patterns, are indeed patterned. They're just patterns that we are not yet able to see. Reality is already patterned. It is already timeless. And it appears that the conscious experience is the enterprise of seeing more and more of these patterns. From our perspective, it looks like we are learning more, but I believe that more is actually being revealed to us. This chaotic or unknown domain of the future isn't being discovered, but rather it's being remembered. And we are sort of like these living memories. We are these funnels through which this data gets compiled into patterns. Our organic body is quite literally a series or compilation of patterns, but there is some kind of ghost in the machine. There is something more to it where it's remembering the future, and this remembering of the future is what we call experience, what we call consciousness. And as I mentioned, this isn't really anthropocentric. This isn't about you forgetting where you left your car keys. There is some deeper, more fundamental component at play. I'm not sure if you can call it, generalized consciousness, big C consciousness, panpsychism, you take your pick. But the human experience, human beings, we are just an iteration of this greater overarching process. I think that the stage for this process is much larger than everyone gives it credit for. We really like to restrict things to this more human domain of understanding, but I ultimately believe that there are folds and pockets of this process that are unfolding in all kind of kooky and wild ways. Or in other words, what it means for something to happen is different in different places. To put it a different way, the same way we view the future, the same way that we view time passing, there are domains or pockets of reality where that's different. It's something that is unique to them. Or in other words, there are places where there are things that learn differently. What it means for something to be a pattern is presented to them differently. I don't know if you want to call it different intelligences, alien intelligences, higher intelligences, different dimensions, different domains, divine realm, heaven, hell. I have no idea, but my main point is that this human experience isn't all that there is to the greater scheme of reality. Reality is fractalized. It is something that is being itself in different ways over and over again. And I think that the healthiest way about conceptualizing this greater arching consciousness, if you want to call it, is that we are nothing like it. It is completely alien to us, but it is everything like us. From a statistical lens within set theory, it is the one thing that cannot exist, the set that contains all other sets, including itself. Perhaps there is a giant caveat. Perhaps it is just some giant unbounded set. It doesn't contain itself. Within Gnosticism, this is the monad. It is believed to be this sort of like this singularity. It is where all being comes from, and it was so great that it literally couldn't contain itself and began overflowing, pouring out, and this is how we have reality today. But getting back on topic on this subject of memory, I believe that the past never really goes away, as I stated in my previous video. It is still here. We are all living in it. It's why this world doesn't appear completely alien to you at all times. It's kind of, as I mentioned with Alzheimer's. It's here. It just exists in some kind of virtual state that's difficult for me to put into words. Everything that happened yesterday is still here. We are all sort of standing on top of it. It is crystallized beneath our feet. If everything that happened yesterday wasn't here, we would just fall into some sort of chaotic, nonsensical state. It would be this planet-wide version of Alzheimer's disease. And it isn't just human society. Reality itself is hosting this memory. I have no idea how many birds landed on the tree outside of my apartment, but that particular question has an answer. The information is still out there somewhere. No information is lost, not one single nanobyte. And to wrap this video up, similar to how a computer functions, I think that memory takes up space. It takes up some kind of space, and it eventually reaches a point where it maxes out. And at that point, nothing else is able to be processed. Nothing else is able to happen. And this applies to us, that somehow, some way, this same motif of people throughout history claiming that there is some end, some kind of collision, transition. There is something that is happening that is ultimately coming to an end. When everything is certain, nothing else is possible. Or, as I commonly phrase it on this channel, if you knew everything, there would be nothing left to imagine. Whatever this cosmic factor is, this being, it wanted to imagine. It wanted to forget so that it could experience possibility again. And when this dance that it's doing with itself is over, it will be left with all that there ever was, itself. Nothing but memories. We are all going to experience this. Once you reach the end of your life, when it's time to say goodbye to this world, you're going to realize that it was just you this whole time. You can't bring anyone with you, and all you'll be left with is memories, because it's all that you ever were. It's all that anything actually is. But I'm going to end the video here. I plan to dive deeper into this topic on my members platform, and I'm going to put the video on locals as well. So if you are interested in this specific kind of insight, consider supporting the channel, or if you just like my content in general, all donations, all contributions are greatly appreciated. I'm also going to be doing some new things over on the members platform as well as my other social media avenues. So consider following me on those places if you want to keep up with me. I moved into a new apartment, which I really enjoy, but it has its own hosts of different sounds and acoustics. And I also moved closer to a train. And while it's good for me, I enjoy the sound of the train passing by. You may hear different sounds. I may sound different sonically on this video. So keep that in mind. I think that's all I wanted to talk about on this video. And until next time, y'all have a blessed day.